I am so excited to have on the podcast today Mercedes Grant and Isis Spann, two new education entrepreneurs who just opened the doors of their new microschools this fall and are going to share some insights on what it's like those first few weeks of education entrepreneurship, some of the rewards and unexpected challenges. Mercedes has been on the podcast before. You may recall her from last spring when she was talking about kind of pre-launch experience and was about to open up her enrollment to Path of Life Learning in Virginia. And just soon after she opened up her enrollment, she had a wait list, and now that wait list has only grown. So it'd be great to hear your experience, Mercedes, like sort of what's happened over the past 6 months. And then Isis, you just opened this fall. You have about 7 students so far in a microschool in South Carolina and are looking to continue to grow there. Both of you went through the Kipod Catalyst program. We've had Amar Kumar, the founder of Kipod, on the podcast previously, and his Kipod Catalyst program is really aimed at prospective education entrepreneurs who want to launch microschools or learning pods or similar innovative models and go through an accelerator program for several weeks to kind of gain the confidence and tools to do that. So I want to hear all about your experience going through the Kipod Catalyst program and the launch and kind of where you are now a few weeks into that. So, Mercedes, maybe we could start with you with Path of Life Learning in Virginia and tell us a little bit about what's transpired since you were on the podcast in the spring, just before opening up your fall enrollment.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so from that point of I feel like I was a little unsure of how things were going to go, right? I knew that I had a good base and I knew that I had some really great families that were going to enroll, but I had no idea that it was going to turn into something that was this popular, I guess. So we filled enrollment in about 3 weeks, and then we just started getting more and more people that were filling out this waiting list, this interest form. And initially I was like collecting data on the side, like, hey, who are you? I guess maybe if a spot opens up. And now I just created that what is it called? Oh my gosh, I'm losing myself right now. I created the waiting list form and just had so many parents reach out to me, and things have just been incredible. Honestly, the growth has been amazing. The relationships that I've built with the students has been amazing. And I have learned so much about kind of what I should be doing versus what I shouldn't be doing, and how to kind of let go some of those things that I initially came in thinking would work out. And I'm just kind of like figuring out all the ins and outs of this new venture.
Yeah, Mercedes, and how many students do you currently have at Path of Life Learning, and how many are on your wait list?
So we have 34 enrolled right now, and I believe we're at about 30 that are on the waiting list, that are just excited, I guess, and also interested to find a new way for their children to learn. Most of the families that attend here now, their children were attending a homeschool program already, and this was in addition to. And now what I'm seeing on the waiting list is that the majority of families are coming from a traditional setting. So they are looking for an alternative to education for their children, which I find very intriguing and just a blessing, to be honest, because this is so different, even for me to figure out, than a traditional school setting.
And we were together, Mercedes, just a few weeks ago at an education entrepreneurship workshop in the Richmond, Virginia area, sort of seeing this growing cluster of education entrepreneurship happening throughout the state of Virginia, with parents really demanding alternatives to a conventional classroom, and entrepreneurial parents and teachers like you moving to create those models. So just such an exciting time. Isis, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey too to education entrepreneurship, from participating in the Kipod Catalyst program last spring to opening your doors this fall. What has that experience been like for you?
Yes, that experience or this experience has been transformative, especially in my mindset, because I'm coming from being a classroom teacher of almost 13 years to being a business owner, to having to really think about, products and finances and more than just content. Because as a classroom teacher, your lesson planning, your content base, you're building relationships with families, and of course your school leadership and your principal deals with all of the financial things. So definitely having the mindset shift of both and instead of just separating the two of those, and really being grateful and thankful for the Kipod relationship and the journey that it took us on, because I would not have gone down this path without that support, because it was just a little too scary for me. And it's still scary. I'm not even gonna lie. We opened in August, and some days I'm still terrified to be the business owner. I know how to teach, and I know curriculum, and I know the things to do in order to make sure that students are learning, but it's just certain aspects of the entrepreneurship journey that is still scary. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting point, Isis, because, I often say that the vast majority of the microschool founders or education entrepreneurs that I come in contact with are former classroom teachers in conventional schools. And of course, the two of you are, fit into that category. And you're right. You may have a passion for teaching and love your work in education, but you may not have a lot of experience when it comes to running a small business and being an entrepreneur. So Isis, maybe back to you. What was it that attracted you to the Kipod Catalyst program, and how did that experience, that accelerator experience, work? Kind of take us through what that
Mhm.
accelerator was like.
Yeah, so for us, it was 18 weeks. And Mercedes, please correct me if I get any of this information wrong, because it feels like it was like 2 years ago that we did all of that, but it was literally this year. So it was 18-week process. They were very intentional about building out those 18 weeks so that it focused on very specific strands and very specific bits of information. So one week could have been culture, another week could have been finances, another week could have been curriculum. So it's 18 weeks of us really learning and doing the work. And I think a lot of times when you get into certain programs, you think, oh, we're going to get this information and they're going to do the work for us. No, it was getting the information, getting the templates, but still having to do our own market research, still having to find our location, still having to speak with families so that we know the best curriculums that they would be interested in. And just going through, before joining the program, just looking at what it would look like and what it would include. That was really big for me, because I thought I knew where my gaps were as it related to having a micro school, because it's very different from, because I have a small business that focuses on consulting and coaching, but it's very different from having a micro school, because as a coaching consultant, you send a proposal, you send a contract, they sign it, you send it back. It's a one, sometimes it's a one and done. But with a micro school, it's every single day. It's thinking about staffing, it's thinking about projections, it's the iPads aren't working. So now I'm the technology person and I'm the teacher. Something is happening in the bathroom. So now I'm the janitor and I'm the teacher and I'm the technology person. So with Kipod, it gave us a lens and a template, and it continues to give us support to know that, hey, if something does go wrong, I can still go in the Slack and have a conversation with my colleagues. I can still reach out to or a member of the team and ask, like, hey, did you guys face this, or did you face that? Like, there are still literally bi-weekly calls to have conversations about enrollment if your enrollment numbers aren't what they need to be. So it was really that sense of community and consistency that drew me to the program, and also just the motivation and the knowledge that came with the individuals. Because as a person that has been a part of a lot of coaching programs and different groups, there's a difference between looking at a template and having to figure it out versus being able to send a text message and pick up the phone and call, and someone is going to be on the other end of the call or other end of the phone to help you through that process. And that's what Kipod has at least done and been for me.
So great. I'll just pause for a moment and give a little bit of background and history about Kipod for listeners and viewers who may not be familiar, although I would encourage you to check out my interview with Amr. But Kipod really is designed to bring together kind of the best of online learning and online curriculum with an in-person social learning experience. And so Amr went through the prestigious Y Combinator Startup Accelerator program, and then launched Kipod at first in Boston. That was sort of its flagship location, not too far from where I'm located, just outside of the city, and brings together students kind of mixed age in that one-room schoolhouse feel that we know is so familiar with microschools. And the families themselves decide what curriculum matters to them. So parents have full control of whatever curriculum their children are engaged with, whether it's Montessori or self-directed or classical or faith-based or secular. The parents can decide what their children are learning. Obviously, they can get recommendations from Amr and the Kipod team, but at the end of the day, it's parents that decide. But then the kids come together daily for in-person interaction. They do their curriculum together in community with others. There's an experienced educator who kind of facilitates the pod and who provides enrichment and social activities. So it's just such a great model. Still only one here in Massachusetts, but Kipod is scaling across the country, including especially in states that now have universal education savings account programs and other generous school choice policies that enable families to have more choice in education and use a portion of state taxpayer funding to approved educational expenses that help them design a learning program that matches their child's needs and preferences. So great to see that. And then Amr realized that he wanted to help others kind of launch microschools as well, not necessarily a Kipod, but in your case, you can, launch independent microschools and pods, but just have some of that support and that guidance to do so. So maybe Mercedes, you can talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you, because you were planning to open a microschool even before you went through the Kipod Catalyst program. So what was it that attracted you to that accelerator program? Do you think it was necessary? Are you glad you did it? Kind of tell us about that experience.
Yeah, sure. So that was one of the things that was beautiful to me about the program, is that I still had control. I didn't have to be a Kipod. I didn't have to be follow a certain model or teach certain curriculum. I could still be 100% independent. And that was really important to me, especially if we're talking about educational freedom, right? Because at the end of the day, the educators are also the entrepreneurs, and we want freedom too. So that was really, really important to me. And when I talked to Amr initially, I was like, well, I've already done so much research. I found out about him from your podcast. I was driving, listening to your podcast, as I often did. And as soon as I got off your podcast and got onto the computer that night, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm applying for this. This is insane. This is so cool. And so my experience is very, very similar to Isis. Although I had done a ton of research and I felt ready, there is no way that I would have been able to launch and be this successful without the Catalyst team. And Isis and I were in the same cohort, and we built a really, really strong relationship together throughout those 18 weeks because we would meet as a small group. So every other week we would meet as a small group, and we would talk about all the things. We would cry together. We would laugh together. We would be like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Are we doing any of this right? But I will truly say that one of the benefits that I really enjoy now, because she explained, the 18 weeks and what that looked like. What I really love now is that I can say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing in this part. Can you guys please help me? Or, oh my gosh, I did this awesome thing. And I'm going to go share it with our group. Or, hey, I have a curriculum question. Or, hey, I have this incident that happened at the micro school. Can you guys give me advice? Like, how should I handle this? And while I think about handling things or doing things in a very traditional sense, sometimes my guidance is very against that. Like, hey, actually, don't pull out the stack of paperwork. Like, don't follow any of these rules. Just have a conversation. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's just been really good to have, number one, the freedom to do whatever I want because this is my business, but to also have someone that is backing my business. I really found it attractive that I know that the Catalyst program is following me for 3 years. So I know that my business needs to be successful because they also want to be successful. So I really like that. I like the whole camaraderie of it all. If Isis does something great, she can share it to us, and we can all kind of like clap or cheer or even follow some of the things that she's doing. And then the last thing that I find very valuable is the fact that anything that comes up that is new, any grants that are found, any resources that are found, they are immediately shared with us. So there's nothing that's like, okay, you guys are part of the first cohort and we already took care of you. You're there. Now we're going to move forward. I feel like they really try to take care of us, which is just really, really valuable, especially as we grow, because we're sitting here now as brand new entrepreneurs and doing this micro school thing that we're doing. And we're doing it to the best of our ability now, but I just imagine in 2 years where we're going to be, in 3 years where we will be. And it just is really, really incredible to have that kind of support.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting point. So, I mean, I talk to a lot of founders, microschool founders on this podcast who go it alone. I mean, they, you may decide that they want to be an independent microschool founder, and you are also, independent founders. You're running your own programs that are not connected specifically to Kipod in terms of the brand, but you do get that support. But there are some who just choose to go it alone. I think that what you're saying is that it can be really helpful, particularly if the kind of person who can benefit and really gravitates towards that community and that peer support, to join some kind of network, or in this case, an accelerator program at Kipod. I've had similar, entrepreneurs on my podcast before. I think about Mara Leineberger from Microschool Builders. There's also the National Microschooling Center, Don and Ashley Soifer, Microschool Solutions. There's other kind of startup programs through organizations like Liberated Learners or Arrow, the Alternative Education Resource Organization, which can kind of help to build that community and that camaraderie. That can be really helpful. So just great that Kipod is in the mix here, and I know has another current fall cohort right now of an accelerator catalyst program, and then again we'll open up applications for the spring cohort. So that's kipodlearning.com. But Isis, tell us a little bit about what has it been like now being an entrepreneur over the past few weeks since opening your doors? What has been surprising to you? What has been rewarding?
Ooh, what has been surprising? I had a lot of surprises. I think the biggest thing I would say is just families not knowing that this is an option for them. I think I've met and spoken with so many families that feel like this option is just an option for a certain type of people or a certain group of people. So really having to not only share my school and essentially sell my school, but I also have to shift the mindsets of families to know like, hey, this is something that it's for your family too. Like if you don't like where you are, if you don't like the education that your child is receiving, if you don't feel comfortable where your child and where your family is currently learning, this is an option for you. And it doesn't have to be something that you do every day. So it's surprising to me that just families just really overall don't understand that they have that option, or that they have this option. And then I think one of the most rewarding things is the comments that I get from grandmothers that have grandchildren that come to our school that may make comments that, hey, like my granddaughter is now in 5th grade. This is her first time really loving going to school and actually liking her teacher and liking what they're learning about. They come home and they talk to us about the different lessons that you guys have, doing cursive writing and learning about Black women for Black history. So those comments are the most rewarding, and they keep me going and pressing forward. And because we aren't at our max for enrollment, those are the comments that I need so that I know I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing. So those would be the things that surprise me and the things that are rewarding for me at this moment.
Yeah, and if I can just stick with you a little longer, Isis, thinking back to your previous experience as a conventional classroom teacher, what is it like now running a microschool? How is that a different experience?
Yeah, well, you guys can't see it because I'm sitting down, but every Monday is pajama day at our microschool. So it's pajama lounge day every Monday. And I could never do that. Pajama day was probably 3 times a year before, but just the freedom to go on Facebook and see something really cool happening at the library, and we can get up and go the next day if we want to, and I don't have to ask permission. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that it's just so permissionless, that if I feel like my families are going to enjoy it, or the students are going to enjoy it, or it's good for the community, I can put it out there, and I don't have to ask for permission to do something good. And as a classroom teacher, I felt like so many times I had to ask for permission to celebrate my students or celebrate my families, or it had to be on the school calendar, or my whole team had to be doing it in order for us to do it. But now in this space, not only do I have the freedom to make those choices, but I also have the freedom to say, you don't know how to do multiplication yet. You don't know how to add and subtract with regrouping yet. And it not be, oh, you have to learn this in 4 weeks, or you're a bad kid, or you have to do this, or you have to sit down and sit at the table and learn, or you have some sort of diagnosis, or there's something wrong with you. So I literally took pictures and video and sent it to one of my families the other day of her son with his socks and his shoes off and his feet on the wall, and he's under the table doing Lexia. And I'm like, this is the type of environment in school that I want to create and to have around for families, because it's just what's good for kids. And I'm glad and I'm blessed that I have the freedom to do what's best for kids and not what's best for the system.
I love that. And Isis, your students, the 7 that you have now, I know you said you're about to take on an 8th. They're all recognized as homeschoolers in
Yes.
South Carolina. Yeah. And is that by design for you? I mean, do you ever consider wanting to be a recognized private school, or is it the kind of microschool model, which can often be this hybrid between homeschooling and conventional schooling, that's so appealing to you?
I like as much freedom as possible. So whatever model that is. So right now we are not a part of what we have, like an independent school association in South Carolina, which would give us that private school label. Right now we are a learning center. Our families are option 3 homeschoolers, which in South Carolina, option 3, those families are taking the ranks, if you will, for lack of better words, of their education. So right now I'm okay with being in that realm, because I also need to learn more about other options before I put that out to families. Like I like to be the person that can answer the questions and direct them to as many resources as possible. And right now, as a homeschool 3 option mom, I can give them more resources than other options, that they might have. But the way that we are also set up is that families can come into our environment if they are not homeschoolers, but they would like to come for the 5-day program and do the tuition base and come and learn with us. Or if they're still in public school, but they want some remediation services after school, they still have that option as well. But right now, majority of our families, all of our families are homeschool option 3 homeschoolers, South Carolina homeschoolers.
That's great. And Mercedes, that's a similar structure that you've created for Path of Life Learning, where the 30 plus students that you currently have are recognized as homeschoolers. But like ISIS's program, it's a drop-off program with, hired educators, including you, who are running the Microschool. And same question for you. What is it about that Microschool model that you find appealing? Do you ever think about becoming a recognized, kind of private school? Or again, do you like this sort of permissionless space?
Great question. So I love having a hybrid model. I think that the families love having a hybrid model. They love to be with their children. They love to educate their children. Most of our students come 2 to 3 days a week. We do have a few that come 4 days a week, but the families are really invested in parenting their children and teaching their children outside of even the micro school. And I think it also gives some of the parents some reprieve from parenting, because parenting is very challenging. But it's also a program where they know that they can drop off their children and their child is not only going to be educated, but they're also going to make friends. They're also going to learn sign language and posture and prayer, and they're going to have a music class, and they're going to have power hour, and they're going to grow their brains. We have a time called GYB, which is grow your brain. And they know that all of that is in this package. And if we took this beautifully packaged gift and we turned it into a compulsory education, which comes along with a private or traditional education model, we take away so much of that. So just like Isis said, like all of that freedom kind of is lost. We're going to take away this little thing, and then we're going to take away this, but we're going to add in this mandatory testing. And so when you take away some of the most important things and then add on some of those things that are not so appealing, some of that joy is lost. And I would rather keep this joyful kind of learning experience going. It's working out really, really well for the students. It's working out really well for the families. It's working out really well for me. I think what we're doing here is kind of demanding, like, hey, this is what education should look like. It shouldn't look like all of those somewhat unhappy students, very unhappy educators, and even the parents feeling like they have no say so in their child's education. So I will say that I love this model. I am very, very much drawn to this. I did not know how much I would love this model, but I'm thinking that it is a gold star in my book, and I love everything about it.
So Mercedes, it's interesting because your current families, you said most of them were homeschoolers, sort of doing something unconventional previously, but that the families, the 30 or so families that are on your wait list, are currently in conventional school looking for an alternative, looking to kind of move into that more learner-centered, more flexible, personalized learning space. What are you hearing from them? Why are they wanting to leave the conventional system, and what attracts them to your model?
Well, I think one of the things, especially for the area that I live in, one of the things that is appealing is the price point. A lot of families can't afford a full-time private education, but they can afford a hybrid education for their children. It's less than a car payment for one child to come here 2 days a week, which is incredible. It's also less money to come here 2 days a week. It's less money than tutoring. So the affordability part is huge. I told a lot of my families last year that were coming to me for tutoring. I said, coming to my program 2 days a week is so much cheaper than coming to see me privately. And, that's one of the big appealing things. Also, the school safety. School safety here is a huge issue. We have a lot of military families who are coming from other places, and it is very hard. And as a military spouse, I know how hard it is to have to place your child in a new school where you don't know and where the rep is bad already. So, that is definitely one of the issues. Another thing is that a lot of the families on my waiting list have students with special needs. So at my school, my micro school, we do serve lots of students that have special needs, whether they're documented or not. And we accommodate those children in such a natural way. Like there's no paperwork and there's no, recording of information. It's just naturally finding out where those students are. And I think the parents are really struggling with the school system and having the school system serve their children that have special needs appropriately. That is huge. And it's a huge appeal to know that your child can be in a smaller group and have a customized learning plan for them so that they can be successful and they can be challenged appropriately, rather than a system that, is black and white and we don't do anything outside of these boxes. And if your child falls behind, we are going to just keep moving them forward. It's really sad to see how many students need something like this, but are not able to access it. But I'm really happy that the students that we have here are able to access this because it is working miracles. The feedback that I've gotten from parents is so positive and so uplifting. Never before as a special educator did I experience so much encouragement, from these parents, and the feedback is fantastic. So we're doing something right on this side.
Isis, what about you? What are you hearing from the families whose children are coming to your micro school? What's attracting them to your model? What has their reaction been?
Yes. So first of all, disclaimer, 3 of my children are with me at my micro school. And last night, my husband had his phone open and our 6-year-old started reading his text messages. And he was just so shocked. He was shocked and a little like, hey, like mind your business. But he's seeing as a parent that she's learning more words. She's actually learning how to read and to count, and she's excited about it. And our 7th graders who have struggled with math for a very long time are now, spinning out multiplication and division facts, and they don't have math anxiety anymore because I'm able to teach them and show them different strategies and have conversations about it when we get home. And my daughter, who's conquering cerebral palsy, doesn't feel left out at recess anymore because now there are children that will play with her. Now there is different equipment that I can even help her to get onto now because it's not 70 kids on the playground at one time. And other families are just also realizing and understanding, to my earlier point, like, this is an option for me. This is something that I can afford to do a couple times a week. Like Mercedes said, I don't have to do it every day, or I can do it every day because I need it for my child, and they don't have to go to public school because I'm a working mom. So I have families that are working that thought that, oh, they have to go to public school because I have to work from 9 to 5. And I'm like, no, they can come to our micro school and we can work out a schedule of a drop off and a pickup schedule that works best for you, so that you don't feel like you have to send your child back into that environment because you also have to feed them. So it's just me being able to not only serve them on the educational side of things, but also being able to serve them mom to mom, talking about recipes, talking about, the changes that they go through as preteens, and just really having that approach to school that I've always done as a classroom teacher, always being highly engaged with my families. But now I can really, in so many ways, give them more knowledge and understanding and just support that I know that they weren't getting before. And this is why they're coming to me. They're coming to me because they know that I'm not only going to teach your child, but I'm going to love on your child. I'm going to pray for your child. I'm going to encourage your child. It's not just them coming to me to learn how to read and do math, but I'm thinking about what I want them, what type of life I want them to have when they're 25, 30 years old. And it's not just they're coming to me just to get passed through to a new content area or a new grade. I'm really overly concerned about what life is going to look like for them. And I think that's what draws families to the program.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point, Isis. It's like moving away from transactional education to more trust-based, relationship-rich education, and that you're really in partnership with parents, which it sounds like both of you are saying is why you really like this microschool model and the freedom and flexibility to serve students who are technically homeschoolers, but in this kind of hybrid model. So for Isis, for you, what are your future goals? I mean, it seems like you're moving toward incremental growth, one student at a time. What do you feel like the next, the rest of this academic year, maybe next academic year look like for you?
Yes, for me, and I've been asked this question by a lot of my friends in different parts of Charleston. So my goal is not to replicate my school. I do not desire to have many a home for schools. I often say I'm like the Ron Clark Academy of Microschool. Like I don't want to have a plethora. I want to have this one. You guys come visit. You slide down the slide. You see what it's like to be in our school. And I want to train and coach. Like I love to be a coach. So I would love to have more of a platform where I get to encourage other individuals that want to start micro school and kind of give them the blueprint that I follow that works for me, and that has proven success for them to go out and replicate that and make it work for their communities. And I also want to still speak to individuals that are going through teacher education programs to let them know you don't have to go into a public school. You can get your degree and you can start a micro school. You can get your degree and start a pod. So it's really helping new teachers that are coming into this space to understand that they also have choices. Because when I was going through an education program, your choice was to go into the classroom or join organizations like Teach for America. No shade to anyone, but they didn't let us know that you can also be in business as a teacher. Like you could start a teacher-based business. So I really want that to be known for new teachers that are coming into this space, that you can go the public school route if that's what your desire is, but you can also take your passion for music or art or math or reading, and you can actually build a business around that, and you can still serve children and families that way as well.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I mean, have you thought, Isis, about how to do that most effectively? How do you do this outreach to teachers in training to let them know about these alternatives?
Yeah, so I've actually connected with local colleges here, and I'm actually going to speak to teachers on the 13th about what I've done with my teaching career and with my passions, to let them know that your passions can be packaged differently, because I feel like that's going to be very, very important for individuals that have a passion for teaching, because sometimes the public school system takes people that are very, very passionate and very good for kids, and they burn them out, or they feel discriminated against for one reason or another, and they don't get to teach kids. And the individuals that have free time, but they don't necessarily have a passion and a love for kids, end up being in front of that room, because those ones that really love what they do and how they do it just don't feel appreciated. So that is something that I'm very passionate about packaging and working on, so that this school that's in Moncks Corner is not the only place that families could come. And while I would love to have a waiting list of families, I also would love for them to not have to wait to get the education that they deserve for their kids.
So important. Yeah, and Mercedes, that must be a source of tension for you because you want to serve those 30 plus families you currently have with all you've got, but yet you also must feel pressure or desire to help those other 30 who you don't want to have to wait. I'm curious if you think it will be more challenging for you to scale to serve more families than it was to start your organization to begin with. What's more challenging for you, startup or scaling?
I definitely think starting up was probably more challenging. This goes back to one of those things where you asked Isis earlier, like, what was one of those surprises? And for me, the surprise was definitely everything that I dreamed, right? Not everything, but all these things. I had everything in the right place. I had all my tables correct. I had my staffing right. I had my curriculum picked out. And then it was like, Mercedes, that's not how microschool works. Like, oh, so I've had to really de-school myself and really draw back on, even though that looks like it's really going to work or it sounds like it's really going to work well. The microschool, we go based off what children need, right? So I could envision what children might need, but I didn't really know. So I think a lot of like figuring out the startup cost and the schedule and how to really pick out curriculum when I want to teach so bad, but then I have 8 levels of math in the same classroom. And I'm like, so I think that since I've seen it in action, I think it will be a little bit easier to scale. I have some room here at the church where we are, so I can just open up classrooms, which is really nice. I've already figured out what I want in a staff member, and kind of how to do those interviews and figure out who would be right for this kind of program. So I think that I want to say, I'm hoping that I'm not jinxing myself, but I really want to say that scaling might be a lot easier than starting up, just because I've worked out so many of those things that I didn't necessarily foresee, or that I thought in my mind what would be perfect, and then actually had to say, like, man, I really should have waited until, I see how this is to make this decision. So yeah, I think scaling will be okay. I do also think that Umer's told me a million times, Mercedes, you serve those founding families, serve them well. Do a really amazing job, because I'm a perfectionist. I love to do a wonderful job. And if I were to scale too soon, or too big, talking to other people, other founders in this industry, they say, I wish I would have not grown so fast. So I love Isis's idea of helping others. I'm the same. I want to help people. I want to have more education options here in Virginia. I want for parents to feel like there are lots of other options so that they don't have to have a waiting list. Like that part for me is very sad, but I also have to be realistic in what I'm doing, who I'm serving, and how I'm serving, because that is, I'm very, very passionate about doing it right and giving the kids what they need and the families what they need is the priority at this point. So I can't wait for next year. I can't wait to open up a little bit more and grow a little bit more. But I really also can't wait for other educators to step up and be like, hey, this has gone really well. I have an idea. Would you be able to support me? Come in. Path of Life Learning, the doors are open. And I know that Isis is the same. Like, let's teach you how to do this and do it well, because it is so rewarding. And it's so much, I want to say it's so much better than what we've known before. There are so many rewarding experiences in education, regardless of the model, or the place that you educate. But this is really, really incredible because we have so much freedom, and the children are just so much more happy. So please, if you're thinking about opening a micro school, a hybrid school, a freedom learning center, whatever it is you call it, like, the people need you, our children need you. So let's do this, and let's do it well together.
So I love that. I often ask my guests advice for prospective education entrepreneurs and founders. What would they say? And you are both super encouraging of wanting current, parents and teachers to go off and hang their shingle and open these models and serve more families. And I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, both of you, as you kind of come up on your first 100 days of running a microschool. Looking back, so what do you want prospective entrepreneurs, education entrepreneurs to know about what those first 100 days are like?
I think there is just so much to learn. Be kind to yourself. My shirt actually says be kind. Be kind to yourself. We are putting everything into this, our whole heart into this business. Now we call it a business. We've not called it that before. We put our whole heart into these children, to the business, to the classroom, to our staff members, to the parents. And I think we're always doing better than what we give ourselves credit for. And I will also say that there is light. There is a time when you have finally broken through all of these technology barriers that you didn't even know existed until you open a microschool and nobody has a school-run Google account. There are these breakthroughs of like, the children have done this kind of project before. I can actually give this to them and they can go ahead and do it. So give yourself some time, be kind to yourself, continue to push through, and then find the other people that have gone before you and go ask questions. Now there are so many resources that there weren't 3 years ago. You don't have to be alone anymore. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is that yes, it's hard, but once you get to that breakthrough point, like, it's just so beautiful and incredible.
That's great. Isis, what about for you? Advice to founders in their first 100 days?
Yeah. I think the one thing that I would open up with is a quote that I heard that says, dance with who brought you to the prom. So it's really sticking with that person that thinks enough about you, loves you, cares for you, and had your back before you started any of this, right? That heard your vision, that saw what you were doing before anybody else saw it. Because I feel like when we start something new and it's shiny and it's going well, we look at the likes and the comments and we get caught up in that and we forget about the person that brought us to the prom. So it's like, I'm always going to go to my husband first with any good news, with anything new that we do, because that's who brought me to the prom. And that's who's going to encourage me day in and day out. And I feel like when you're in this new entrepreneur space and people start to know your name and you start to get invited on national podcasts with really cool people, you can forget about the people that were there in the beginning when you needed those extra funds or whatever to start your dream and to really keep you going and keep you motivated. And when you do that, you lose yourself. And you start to think, oh, well, my post got 100 likes last week, but it only got 85 likes this week. So I'm not a good teacher, or I'm not a good entrepreneur, or I'm not doing something right. So I think it's really important, especially in this climate of social media and just this instant gratification, that you don't forget who started with you, that you don't forget who had your back, that you don't forget who encouraged you, because there are going to be so many opportunities. You're going to get the chance to you're going to get invited into rooms that you didn't think that you would get invited to. And that will start to make you think that you're better or that you come further. And sometimes that's not true. So it's important to stay humble and to stay grounded. And it's important to remember who you are and don't compare yourself to any other program. Don't compare yourself to any other school. Don't compare yourself to any other community, because it's about what you have the capacity for. It's about what you were created and what you were designed to do. And maybe you weren't designed to do what that other person is designed to do. So you have to know what it is that you're supposed to do. Who are you supposed to serve? who are you supposed to help, and keep that in the forefront of your mind as you go through this journey and as you go through this process, because the days are hard and the days are long, and the curriculum you want to figure out what curriculum to pick, and you want everything to be perfect, and you want to dot every I and cross every T. But something that I also say to new teachers that I talk to, it's 90% of it. I'm sorry, it's 10% of the curriculum that is online, and the other 90% of that curriculum isn't even gonna come until the kids walk in the room. So you can plan all you want, but when Liara walks in the room, it doesn't even matter what's on your schedule, because there are needs that she has, there are needs that her family has, there are gaps in learning that you're going to have to fill. So it's not ever going to be the way that you planned it to be. Having the plan is good, but also knowing who's leading and guiding and directing your ultimate plan is even more important for the days when the plan just don't work or when it's not looking like you need it to be or you want it to be. So stick with who was there in the beginning, right? Understand that it's not going to be perfect and you're not going to have it all together. And also know that you were built and you were created and you were made for this, but you just have to know for yourself what you're supposed to do and who you're supposed to serve. And you serve those people, whether it's 3 or whether it's 3,000, you serve them and you do the best by them, because we're not going to know the true effect of our impact until 50, 60 years from now. So you do what you were called and designed to do, and you leave the rest up to everybody else. Don't try to do everything. That's what I would say.
Such fabulous advice from both of you, and so inspiring, I'm sure, to those listening and watching. Isis, what is the best way for my viewers and listeners to learn more about you and your microschool, connect with you, share some details with us?
Yes. So you guys can go to our website, ahome4school.org. We also do have a private Facebook group. It's actually called Isis Spann Teaches, and it's for individuals across the nation. Like there's no, you don't have to be in South Carolina to join that group. But if you have questions about learning, if you want help with reading or math, like that group is designed for families that need us, but maybe they can't come to us right now, but they can still be a part of that community. So ahomeforschool.org or our private group, Isis Spann Teachers, on Facebook.
Great. And Mercedes, what about you? How can folks reach out to you, connect with you, learn more about Path of Life Learning?
Sure. So I have a Facebook as well. That is Path of Life Learning. And you can kind of see what we're doing here and follow along our journey that is fun and incredible. And then you can also email me at pathoflifelearning@gmail.com.
Mercedes Grant and Isis Spann, congratulations on your initial success and in creating such incredible learning spaces for learners in your community. Best wishes to the future for all of you. And thank you so much for being on the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you
for
for having
the
us.
invitation.
Yes, thank you.